Hey everyone, it's your host Marcus Norman of Gentleman Style Podcast Show, and today, I found this incredible woman, and I'm so excited to have her on the show today. Her name is Mica Anders. She's a history detective that you never knew, that I never knew, you and I needed in our lives. With over 20 years in genealogy experience, she's made it her mission to uncover the hidden stories, those untold stories that time forgot about. And specializing in African-American and Midwestern U.S. narratives, she is pushing back, and she's here and helps her clients and everyone find those hidden gems that we may have missed throughout uh, our incredible, fascinating history. And so this woman is absolutely, she's a member of the Association of Professional Genealogists and recipient of the 2023 Minnesota Genealogical Society Pioneer Award. So we got a superstar on this show here today, and I'm so excited to have her. And so I can't hold back this woman any further. Help me welcome to the stage the incredible Miss Mica Anders. Ma'am, how are you? How are you doing?
I'm good. I'm good. Thanks for having me. It's a cold and dreary day here in Minnesota, but it's fall, so I love it.
Absolutely. It is. It is the transition between the seasons as we approach the end of another year. And so that question was kind of my first softball question and lead up to how are you doing today, Miss Sanders? And that is personal. How are you coping? We are in a shutdown. We are in a very politically charged climate. We are in ICE raids, detention centers popping up right and left, people not getting paid, SNAP benefits going away, Medicaid benefits. How are you doing today?
So hanging in there is probably the best way to say that, right? So for me, um, everything is okay in my small circle, but as soon as you go one step into your next larger circle, it's already people being affected daily, people dealing with consequences that are my friends, my loved ones. But for me, I think the thing that makes it hanging in there is I feel like I'm watching a movie that I've already watched before, sort of watching this history repeat itself and and worried about the next three steps because I've seen them before in this work of history that I do.
That is truly that's so real, and that's why when I saw your profile, I had to reach out here. I can imagine it, we're gonna dive into that here in a second, but I want to ask, when did you realize your gift, your passion for history, our history? When did you realize your passion, your superpower that you now use to help empower, encourage, and educate others with today? When did you notice you had the gift?
That's a really great question. I think it found me more
Mm,
than me knowing I had it. I I kind of let life take me where it takes me, right? So I started a path of going to school to be a pediatrician, and then that kind of turned into a path of going to school to do art. And I worked as an artist for a long time. And even in that work, I was pulling history, pulling genealogy, trying to tell narratives and stories that had been left out of history or were almost erased. And so, even as my life of being an artist, I was still bringing in history. Um, I live in an intersection of worlds where our narratives aren't told. I'm a biracial person born in the 80s. We were kind of a more of an anomaly then. It's a lot more commonplace now. But just knowing that I lived in a world that wasn't talked about, or where it was kind of like, think about this part of you, but don't think about this part of you, or this part of you has more value than this. I didn't internalize any of that personally. I felt comfortable in all of my identity, but it was always clear to me that I needed to understand the history of where this came from and the whys, and and let people understand sort of a broader context than the narrow views they're often given of history and ways of being and identity.
Abs- Absolutely. One of the most profound things I learned, and again, this is why I reached out to you, is because Dr. Umar, uh, who's Pan Africanism, um, I think he was doing it for a long time, but he said on a podcast interview that when he learned that through his genealogy, through his history, that he was related to someone famous in history. I forget the connection that he made, but it was a black man who did well in history and has a significant and played a significant role in his history in U.S.
Mhm.
history. And when he discovered that, he something in him is like something in him awoke, and he realized, oh my gosh, there is more to me. There's more to my DNA. There's more here that I'm put on this earth to do. And again, I think he was already doing the Pan African and working in that space and the education. I think that was already going, but it accelerated his trajectory when he found out, in essence, who he was. Um,
Mhm.
can you speak? What about you? Because I'm sure you can't be in this space and not research yourself. What have you
Yeah.
found in your history that has propelled you and pushes you and drives you to help others?
So many things. Gosh, how to even pick one. I
Sorry.
think one thing for me that's been really interesting is I'm a Midwesterner, right? I live in Minnesota. I was raised in Iowa, but I go to all these events and genealogy conferences, and especially in the Black genealogy community. And everybody's like, I'm from the South. I'm from the South. I'm from the South. And at some point, I am also from the South, but it's so far back. And two things on that. So the first thing is, not a lot of people who I talk to really kind of claim their stateside African American history. And, there's always this like reach back to Africa, which is also important, right? But this research has really shown me like the depth of my Americanness, if you know what I mean, right? So my family has been in Missouri. My dad was the first one to leave. His parents, his grandparents, his great grandparents, his great great grandparents were all in Missouri, enslaved in Missouri, and then free in Missouri. And, when you think about people who identify as American versus how we are considered African American, right? Um, I've been here longer. You know what I mean? I've been here. My people have been here longer. So why am I hyphenated? It's just that was a shift. That was a huge shift. Really thinking about this idea of my people, global sense, right?
Mhm.
We we've been here. This is whether we want to claim it, whether it was we were put here. There's this idea of like, I want to learn who these people were. I want to learn who were my Missouri people, not just going all the way back to my African people. I want to learn about them too, but like, who are all these people who lived in Missouri for generation after generation after generation? What were their lives like? What were their names? My grandma's middle name is Kalutha.
Mm,
Kalutha.
really?
I don't know why. I've been working so hard because her first name is Lucille, and she was named after her aunt. And to trace those names, and then my daughter's middle name is Lucille, right? I was like, I'm going to keep this name, keep this moving, tracing those names back, and just that sense of something when you're like, oh, this name didn't just come from nowhere. This Lucille name, this was gifted to her. Okay, well, now who was Lucille that my grandma Lucille was named after? Let me learn about her. What important role did she play in the family? Maybe she wasn't important in society, right? She wasn't a mover and a shaker. She was quote unquote, just a worker, right? A servant, quote unquote. But like, who was she? Because she clearly mattered that my grandma got named after her. And so that's really what did something for me, is this idea of, I want to know the stories. I want to know the stories of all of these people. I want to know who they are, what their lives are like, what they went through, because they shaped who I am, right? But they also lived these lives in history, and like they intersect with these different historical moments. And I want to know, like, what happened in those historical moments, and how are my people impacted by those things here in America for all these generations.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think that can't be stated enough when those connections are made. I appreciate a good docu-series, a good film that can make those historical connections, as well as what we appreciate modern day. Where was your great grandmother when the Brooklyn Bridge was built? Where was your grandfather when, or your great 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 grandfather was when Emancipation Proclamation got signed? Where did they stand or stood in space and time? Where was that? Was it here? Were they brought here against their will, or did they immigrate here because they had to vacate someplace else due to fear of loss of life or death for the family? And how that has now transitioned to, now there's a lineage of us now here in America, but it may not have started there. Your story may not have started there. And
Mhm.
I appreciate those moments. I appreciate those connections to history, because me, you, we are a part of history. And so I really appreciate that. What's the most shocking truth you've uncovered for a client that may or may not have rewrote someone's entire identity? Can you share that? Um,
I
I, 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 I I'll give you one. I hope you've come across it, where someone was thought they were predominantly one race, and discovered through your incredible work that they are not that race, historically. Can you share anything
Mhm.
like that?
I can. Gosh, you just brought like four different examples to mind. So the first one I think is really interesting. I had a friend who he took two DNA tests. He took what's called a Y-DNA test to find out sort of dad's line and what tribe his people were from in Africa. And he took what's called a mitochondrial, or sort of a matrilineal DNA test, which is his mom's line. Again, same thing, right? Because those are going to two different tests that are going to take you two different places. Both of them came back white.
Mm.
Both of them went to two different parts of Europe. Now, mentally, he was able to rationalize based on, right, the tragedies that have taken place during enslavement, and how we all came to be, right, and forced forced births, we'll call it, right. Um, he could kind of rationalize how on his dad's side it could go back to a white male. He could justify that one, right?
Right.
But when his mom's line went back to a white woman and white people, he really had to sit with that for a little bit, because he was pretty sure, he's like, I know there's some white in me somewhere, but a small percentage, right?
Right.
But doing his genealogy, we were able to figure out that on his mom's line, it goes back to a German woman who came to a part of North Carolina, predominantly Black area, and she came to work as a school teacher for this man, and his children. He had a bunch of kids, and he needed a school teacher to help educate his children. Which, by the way, we're talking really early Black man making sure to educate his children, right? So let's start with that great fact. And he ended up also having children by the school teacher. And
Really?
so, yes. And so that's the line that my client descends from.
Ah!
Right.
I knew it. What was it? Was it positive? Did he receive it? Is that what he was looking for? I guess. Is that what he was looking for?
I think hearing that it was from a teacher, w- possibly consensual partnership, um, because he had multiple children with her. They were all raised sort of in a compound together at the end of the day. Hearing that it was a story of education, early education, I think all of those things really helped give it a positive spin, I would say, for him. Yeah. It wasn't a story of something that seemed forced or that came from a place of sort of destitute or anything. And for him, I think those were really positive things.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Changing the game. Miss Mika Anders, changing our lives for the better. That is huge. What is it? What are some of the things that clients typically seek you out for? Are they looking for, because that story sounds like a sense of seeking identity. Who am I? Who was I? Almost to where should I be going, or does this align? Am I
Hmm.
in the right path? Am I off path? Am I way off path? If I come from school teachers and now I'm I don't know, a chimney sweep. My uncle was a great 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 grandpa was a chimney sweeper, and now here I am, a doctor of a medical facility. That is emboldening me.
Hmm. And he's actually an architect now. So
Who'd
there
have
you
thought?
go.
Who'd have thought?
Yep.
What are some
Hmm.
of the things people comment? Are they seeking inheritance? Like, hey, was I wealthy? Is there somewhere along the line that we had some money somewhere and we just lost track? We had some farmland. Why do people commonly seek you out, or what's the most routine thing people seek you out for?
People definitely do come to us about land. I heard there was land. What happened to our land? Do we still have our land? Was it taken from us forcibly? So we'll follow a lot of deeds and sort of go to the courthouses locally to these towns and try and really find the path of what happened to this land. And is it even still in the family? And some third cousins paying the taxes on it, but nobody's lived on it, some things like that. Um, People come. I had a client I talked to recently who she knows a lot about her mom. She knows a lot about her dad's mom. So, right, mom's mom, mom's dad, dad's mom. Dad's dad doesn't know much at all. Wanted to fill in that missing part of her identity and who she is, right? To your point about identity. She wanted to better understand, who was this man? Dad didn't really have a relationship with his dad, just based on whatever circumstances. And through our work, we sometimes can figure out why. Not always, but sometimes we can figure out why that may have been. Other times, people have cases of adoption and they want to learn more about their biological parents. Other times, people are just really curious. They want to get a sense of, who do I come from? Who are my people? I'm in my 40s. A couple generations before us, people are quiet. People don't always share. People don't want to tell the stories. There's a lot of pain that can be associated with some of our past. And when you may ask questions to grandma or grandpa or uncle or auntie, they say, we don't talk about that stuff. But people are curious and they say, well, I understand you don't want to talk about it, but I want to know. I want to know more about who my people were, who I come from. Um, it feels for a lot of people, and I know I felt this until I started my research, like we're just missing a big piece of our history. We watch these shows, we hear all these people talking about, oh, this is where I come from, these are who my people are, I can trace across the water, and we want that history too. There's something so special, to your point earlier about sort of teacher to architect, about, in my family, I sing, my daughter sings, my dad was a musician, my mom is a singer, my mom's mom was a singer. Her siblings played piano. My grandma was a music teacher. I did not know my grandma was a music teacher until I started this work. And then I can literally trace back all of these people who have this history of singing. And I use me as an example, but for clients, it's very similar. It's this idea of trying to understand better who we are by knowing who came before us, knowing their stories. Um, I've had clients who are like, well, we live in Minnesota or Ohio or whatever now. How did we get here? Why did our families come here? When did our families come here? There's just a point where the history kind of just stops. And for a lot of people, it's wanting to pick that up, get those stories, and just really better understand like I said, their history, as well as really understanding their ancestors and getting to meet them and hear their stories through the work that we do.
Absolutely. Absolutely. This is necessary. You brought up you cheated. You looked at my cheat sheet.
Oh no.
You asked a great question, and I wanted to dig one more second on it. Is how difficult, how much more work is that for you and your team when someone has been adopted or been given up for adoption? Where do you even start, right? Because there's a severing. There's a clear division, that a connection that was forced here. um
Mhm.
where do you start? Do you use one of those tests? Any test that you use, where it be, I want to know dads or moms online, where do you start when someone has been adopted or given up for adoption?
Yeah, so DNA is where we start.
DNA.
Um, Super quick nerdy moment. There's three different, well, there's more. The three main types of DNA tests, and the one most people know about, the fancy word for it is an autosomal DNA test. But basically, that tests relatives from across all of your lines, which means that you can kind of know not only dads, moms, but also all of the other ancestors in the middle. Um, and that's where we start. We start usually, and this is definitely not a promo, I usually have people start with Ancestry, DNA, that website, ancestry.com, because the most people have tested there. And really, when you're working with people who are adopted or who don't know one of their bio parents, um, you need the biggest testing pool possible, because at this point, you're looking for clues and you're really becoming a detective or a puzzle piecer, right? So you're trying to find any clues to help you get a sense of who their parents might be. If their parents haven't tested, if they don't have siblings or half siblings who have tested, you're trying to really piece together anybody else who descends from the same grandparents or the same great grandparents. Or sometimes you have to go all the way to two times great grandparents and try and come all the way forward in time and figure out who that person's bio parents may have been.
So you're starting with the back and working your way to the front, to modern day,
Mhm.
to current day. Why? I'm curious. Is it because of the bigger data pool? Why Ancestry over 21 and Me, or I think it's 21 and something? Why
Yeah.
that over? Is it because of the pool? A bigger
Yeah. So
selection
it's
pool?
partly. So 23 and Me, they not as many people on there put trees up. So a lot of people take that test either for health purposes or just to kind of get their ethnicity report, which is not super exact, but it's approximate on all of the sites. So don't ever look at that and think this is exactly who I am. Basically, yes, but not exactly. But that's a whole different talk.
Now you
But
find out you're Irish. Now you're using it to why you're alcoholic. No.
right. Exactly. Like that is not the same. But on Ancestry, more people make trees. So you can start to look at, okay, for example, in my family, I'm able to see the trees of cousins and my grandpa's siblings' kids, and up another generation, I'm able to see, oh, they have that same name in their tree that they have in their tree. Oh, they have it too. Okay, well, those people all are likely to be related through there. So let me start to build all their trees out and let me figure out how I fit in with all of those trees. So that's why I like Ancestry. It's just because more people have trees, more people have tested, depending on where you're from. Now, certain countries, if people are from other countries, other tests may be more helpful. But for people who are primarily American or have been in this, their ancestors have been in this country for a few generations, ancestry.com is probably the best one to use, their DNA kit.
Absolutely. Perfect. Perfect solution. I suspect there's a level, and I know you're a professional, I know you're training this. I imagine there's a level of fallout, emotional fallout, when a client learns their family history um may have been falsified, may have been a lie told to them. Um, how do you handle that emotional fallout with clients? You and your team, how do you guys handle and walk people through and hopefully walk them off the ledge?
Yeah. So I think the first thing is, before I work with somebody, it's really important to get a sense of what they can handle, right? So, if you've taken a DNA test, okay, if you want me to look at your DNA results, are you okay with whatever I find? I may find one of your parents isn't your parent. I might find one of your grandparents isn't. I might find a half sibling. I might find that a sibling had a kid. Like, I need to know what their comfort level is. If they are not comfortable with a truth other than the truth they've been told, I have to decide with them, do you want me to proceed? And if they say yes, then it's my job to make sure that I focus in on what they're looking for, but also don't lie and don't sugarcoat. So it's really delicate balance, right? Um, I've had to tell people that I found half siblings through DNA. I've had to tell people through genealogy records that the person they thought was their biological line was actually a step parent line. So maybe the name that they still carry to this day, their last name, is actually from a step parent somewhere in history. That affects people because so much of your identity is tied to who you are and your name. And to know now that your name isn't even biologically your family name can be really devastating for people. Um,
Absolutely.
it's a situation where I only come from fact, but I also come from feeling, if that makes sense.
It does. You have to.
So
Yeah.
right. So I'm not going to lie. I'm not going to sugarcoat, but I'm going to make sure what I'm giving you is something you can handle. And is also something, you know, let me present it in a way so we can talk all the way around it. When we get to difficult truths about enslavement, right? Who was enslaved? Who was an enslaver? How may our family line have come into being? Was it consensual? Was it forced? Um, those conversations are real. They have to be had, but there's ways that we can have them where where we're able to really focus on those ancestors and the lives that they lived and not personalize it, right? To find out that your last name is not your last name. Okay, well, let's talk about the man that you carry his name. He stepped in and he raised 7 kids that weren't his, and the relationship was so strong that they took his name. So yes, your blood doesn't go to that name, but the heart of your family does, right? So it's about how do you really look at this as a full picture?
Absolutely. That is definitely I can't speak to this 'cause I don't do the great work that you do. But I had a friend who grew up, family raised her to believe this young lady over here is her cousin. Turns out this is, like you said, this is your sister. Had no idea. Had no idea that the person she saw, and there was a level of shame with it. The father, I think the mother stepped out. Someone stepped out and had a baby and brought home the new child. And the family decided to take the sibling and be cared for and nurtured by someone else in the family line. And although the child was alienated from the original family, that she had a whole sister this whole time, thinking she was an only child. But
Mm,
but it was due to shame. They didn't want the neighborhood, they didn't want the community to know that the husband had stepped out and been unfaithful
mm,
and brought home this now child. And the wife was like, I'm not raising that baby. I can't emotionally
right.
raise.
Yeah. Oh no. I've lost you.
Have this sibling feel like they weren't apart. Sorry about that. That was awkward. But
That's okay. We're
that
back.
that is huge, huge, huge to what you do. Listen, slavery. I can't imagine the fallout from discovering that a member of my family was a slave. How do you walk someone off, or genocide or war crimes? Do you
Mhm.
ever get subpoenaed to court for your research? or can you be subpoenaed to court for your research?
I can be. I haven't been. I actually had a case I was worried that would happen because I found somebody who I think was in witness protection. So that was hard, and I treaded very lightly in that case because I didn't want to have anything happen where I was breaching something bigger. That was a crazy case.
Wait, so you've never been court or I can't let it go. You discovered someone that you thought was in witness protection or was actually in witness protection.
I discovered a person was looking for their ancestor who had become estranged from the family. And, they wanted me to find their ancestor. I found them. I would give it a 99% that I found them. They had a new social security number. They had a new birth date that was their birth date reversed. It was too coincidental, right? So they said they were born in 1 month, like January, but the new one said June, so still a J. And the number was whatever, some number, and then it got flipped.
Like 0101. Yeah.
Yeah. So like 01 and now it's 10 or whatever.
Yeah.
Something like that. And they had a new birthplace. So literally it was a person got a new identity. But I 99% know it was the same person. There were pictures, same mom, everything lined up to say this is the same person. But when I saw that they also had a new social security number, I said, I'm stepping out. That's not somebody who just ran off.
That's
something
intentional.
else is going on here. That feels like witness protection. I'm not removing myself, but I'm going to give you what I have. And I'm going to say, and that's where I'm going to stop.
You have
because
to stop.
I haven't gotten a cease and desist. I don't want one. Right? I don't want one. I don't want that. But I think I found your relative, and here's a photo, and here's their obituary, and here's their other children that they may have had after they left and moved to this other state. I can give you all that, but I'm not going to continue researching at this time. So that one was hard. Yeah, that one was hard. But in terms of things like, dealing with enslavement, I think for a lot of people, we assume, rightly or not, that our family was enslaved at some point. Mm-hmm. If our family has been in the US for a certain amount of years, Black folks, right? We assume that somebody was enslaved. And for a lot of people, that's probably true. But it's not the only story. And so when it's time to talk about it, when I do find it, people aren't surprised per se, right? It's like, well, I figured. But there's something about seeing your family's name on an inventory or a sign just Sally, Negro woman, $20. That sort of dehumanizing, right? And then the next line down is Sarah the mule, right? Literally written like, oh, well, the mule's got names too. Well, that's great, I guess. What? Like what?
No, this is a person. This is a
correct.
human being.
Correct. Or when I have to show somebody, we found a will with the people we believe to be your family members because of all this other research that we did. And in that will, it says something like, Violet and her daughter, Sally, and Violet goes to one kid and Sally gets sent to another kid in the will. And so now, okay, well, we know Sally was only like 6. So why is Sally not with Violet anymore? Like, what are we doing? Why we don't do this to humans? So that doesn't get easy. That's never gotten easy. That's hard to read. That's hard to share. That's hard to be like, I found your family. But with the difficulty that there is in that, I have now also found your family. Mm-hmm. Period. End of sentence.
Yeah.
And I've moved your family back and your family story. And if I found the daughter, then I found the mother. I've moved you back 2 generations. And I just gave you back 2 more generations of people and names that you can say and you can share, you can put on your altar and you can put in your tree on the wall that you didn't have before. And so that's the other side of it, right?
That is so big. That is so big because I can picture, yes, you found your family, and yes, unfortunately we found this part of your family. Um and it is almost, you can see someone, you can hear someone raising to roof rock. Great grandpa, he was the best man ever. Great grandpa did this because that's what was taught. And then to find out that your hero was actually a villain in some ways,
Mhm.
that can be completely mind numbing. I remember working in finance. I worked at a bank, and the this gentleman was he was looking for the financial connection in his heritage, in his land, looking for land, like you said earlier, and he found a safe deposit box at our financial institution, and it's great great grandpa's box. Everybody just kind of passed down the box. No one ever really went into it. So he got curious and said, "I want to know what's in this safe deposit box." And so he came to the bank, scheduled this whole family event where they opened great great grandpa's safety deposit box. And grandpa was hailed as a hero. Grandpa was such a prolific individual. He gave to this foundation, he donated to this. And then in the safe deposit box the deed to the home, one of the real estate properties that the family owned, and it had do not ever sell this house to a nigger. And so that
Yeah.
is shocking. I think, and he kind of looked at it. We left the safety deposit box room, let him, kind of absorb that.
Yeah. With
Uh,
everybody there, right? The whole family is all there together and
yeah. Who and again, these people have been paying for this box. Not no one ever said, "I want to know what's in it." They just never
Mhm.
opened it until
Yeah.
I want to know great great grandpa. I want to know his history. I want to know his story, and to find out the hero is now the villain. And it's like, obviously it wouldn't be honored as written, but
Right.
who would have thought that that was a part of his mindset, his frame of work? That
Mhm.
is hard to some degree. So shout out to you and what you do every single day, because that's hard. So thank you for doing what you do. Do you ever come across any historical erasures, parts and blips of time just simply kind of removed or just left, just or not unanswered, but unfilled in? Like there's a blank space here. There's a definite blank space here. And do you see that often with any kind of marginalized communities?
Yeah. So, in addition to my client work, I do a lot of work here in Minnesota and in the Midwest to literally uncover the erased histories of the early African Americans who lived here. Um, there's been Black folks in the Midwest. Again, I'm so Midwestern that like it's my place, right? There's just this idea of there's nobody here. There's no Black people in the Midwest, or oh, they're recent. They haven't been there that long. Um, Here in Minnesota, there have been Black residents of our state since as long as there's been anybody here that isn't native to this land. That history is missing. And and that's the same story in Minnesota, in Iowa, in Wisconsin, in Michigan, right? All of this, the Dakotas. Um, and so what I've observed, and I have a group of people who work with me on this, is when this land was, we'll call it new, for lack of a better term, right? It was definitely taken from people who already resided on it. But when there was sort of this push for folks to move out west to what is now the Midwest, Black folks were part of that push. Free people who came from New York and Pennsylvania and Ohio and North Carolina, South Carolina, as well as formerly enslaved people who escaped to be up here. They came, they started their lives early 1800s. By 1900, almost all of them had moved to the big cities like Minneapolis and things like that, and were gone from the rural communities. But they were founding members of a lot of these really rural towns. Maybe they weren't the first person there, but they were there really, really early, and the history is gone. It's literally gone. Sometimes it feels intentionally erased, right? Other times it feels like there was nobody there to tell their story and pass it on. Um, and so it perpetuates the myth that we're not up here, that there's just no Black folks in the Dakotas. There's actual like Black settlements in South Dakota. Settlements. One of the very first Black directors, Oscar, oh gosh, I'm never going to remember how to say his last name. It starts with an M and it's French. So don't even get me lying. But he was one of the first Black directors. He's from that town in South Dakota, where there's a whole community of Black folks, super early 1800s. And so that's something I work really hard on, is fixing some of those erasures that are here. Those same erasures have happened across the country with the free communities that lived alongside the enslaved communities. So there were free people living not just up here in the Midwest, but in the South, in Virginia, in North Carolina, in every part of place where there were also enslaved people, they were free people. And they've been erased from history as well. I have a client from New Jersey, and her family is free in 1870, obviously 1870, 1860, 1850, 40, 1830, 1820, and 1810. Her family is free, living as free people in New Jersey. And she had no idea, because that seems like a legacy. I was like, how did your family not pass that legacy forward? But it was lost. And it's something that she's so proud of, and a history that was just taken from her family.
Absolutely. What is I want to speak to maybe the cost of restoring. If someone could write you, the person watching you could write you a blank check and say, what's the cost of restoring my history? Is there a number? Is there an action they can take? Archives, a historical archives they could reach out to, a database when coming to you and saying, what do I need to do to fill this gap, this known gap in
Mhm.
my family history?
Yeah. If there's one known gap, it's a very different check to write than if it's, I want to put my history back. You
Hmm.
look at shows like Finding Your Roots on PBS with Dr. Henry Louis Gates, with all the celebrities that come on, right? Um, I hate it, but in order to do that sort of vast, huge depth across your entire tree, it is celebrity money. Um,
That's fair.
but but to do smaller things, right? To say, hey, I want to learn about one ancestor. I want to learn about, this group of ancestors. Those things are financially possible. Those things are more in the thousands rather than the hundreds of thousands. But there's so many resources. I teach classes. I work with people one-on-one. I know there's so many great resources, even things like ancestry.com. If you go to your local library, a lot of libraries you can get on there for free. Local libraries, state historical societies, county historical societies, a lot of the resources you can get for free and low cost. If you want somebody to do it for you, that's usually when it costs a little bit more. But there's so many entry points, and I do want to say, kind of when I'm talking about entry points, a lot of people think, I'll do that later, I'll do that when I'm retired, right? That's kind of this mindset people have, is when I have more money or more disposable income or what have you, more time. And I just kind of want to put out there that when we do that, we lose the people who are living now, right?
Mm-mm.
Oftentimes when people decide they're ready to get started, they are the ancestors, and they're the elders, I guess I should say. And so
Yeah.
now they don't have any elders that they can talk to.
Yeah. Another divide has been created because 9 times out of 10, pop has died, mom has died, great grandma has died. So time is not on our side with that. That's a great,
Mhm.
great point. Um,
Yeah.
sh- this is probably an opinion. I don't think this is best practices, but I want to ask it because, again, there are small times when I would encounter friends or family members who would hide things. Do you feel personally, should families have the right to keep secrets from future generations, or do you think it's their responsibility to share? I share where where they come from, where I come from. What are your personal thoughts on
So many thoughts. Okay.
that?
So, so yes, people absolutely have the right to their secrets. They have the right. That's their thing, right? If you want to use the example you shared earlier about the person finding out their cousin was their sibling, right?
Right.
For mom and dad, that was such a harmful shame that sharing it would do whatever they imagined, right? There's some preconceived ideas of, oh, the neighbors will look at me. To be fair, the neighbors would probably get over it in a couple weeks, but whatever. But for them in that time, because we have to put ourselves now in the mindset of what year was this, 80, 1940, we don't know. So yes, they have the rights to their secrets. However,
dot dot dot.
their secret history is ours too.
Mm.
So when I'm sitting here doing your genealogy and you take a DNA test and cousin takes a DNA test and cousin is sister, what? We didn't have to
Mm.
go through all that if somebody had told us. And now we as adults are now having to deal with the shame that didn't have to be shame, but it was their shame and now it became our shame. And that's the generational thing, right?
Right.
And that can get broken by not doing the secrets. Now, things that are shameful in 1860, 1880 are different than things that are shameful in 1980. A lot of people are told that they have an ancestor who was native, right? Because that ancestor had long hair, high cheekbones, light skin. Sometimes in that time window, sometimes it's true, a lot of times it's not, right? Depending on where your family's from. There was a shame associated with saying that your ancestor was part white, which could also explain the long hair, the high cheekbones, and the light complexion. Because we don't know how that ancestor became part white in terms of, was there a consensual relationship? Was there a non-consensual relationship? Was it consensual but illegal? There's so many things, right?
Right.
So all of a sudden, 4 generations later, you're over here trying to find your family in the Cherokee Nation because you've been told for generations that these are your people because somebody had a secret, either based in shame, based in assumption, based in wanting to distance themselves from a difficult part of history. And now here you are 3 generations later barking up the wrong family tree.
Because you were misled.
Because you were misled. Because somebody else's either shame, misinformation, whatever, is still affecting you 4 generations later. I think I'm trying to think of times where it's like, it's fine. I had a client who was always told that their grandma always told them they were adopted. The grandma
Oh my.
told the grandma told their own daughter that they were adopted
Oh my.
because grandma had, can you hear this dog barking?
I can, but it's
Oh,
a
that's
family
you.
show. I
Okay.
can.
Okay. So grandma told mom that mom was adopted because grandma had an affair with somebody of a different complexion. So mom was a little bit darker than everybody else.
Oh.
And grandma left, had mom. They came back and she said, not like I found this baby exactly, but kind of like I'm bringing this baby into the family.
Right.
And so the mom had a shame The mom had guilt. But because of that, what does that do to grandma had shame and guilt? What does that do to mom to not know that she was raised with her own mom her entire life?
Right.
I don't know. But that shame was grandma's shame, but it got translated down to become mom's. And then that probably impacted how she showed up as a person, thinking that she's missing a part of her identity. And that might shape how she herself became a parent and what she brought to the table as a parent herself.
So it probably fills some gaps in there. Some unanswered questions, like, why is this person who's not my mother so loving to me? Why are they so concerned with me? Why are they so, I can see those arguments just bubbling up, right? Why are you so involved in my life? And then to discover, well, I'm actually your mother. I'm not your grandmother. I'm not your adopted mother. I'm your actual mother. Well, what, like, why didn't you want me? Why did you tell people? Why did you have me telling people that this is my adopted mother?
Yeah.
Why did you let me go through that? High school,
Yeah.
preschool, all the things, right? All this paperwork, right? My census, my FAFSA. Like, why?
Everything.
It creates more
Everything.
harm than good.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna backtrack a second, one step, one beat. How do you handle? Do you have clients who have ever asked you to cover up or erase some information that you found? So the previous question was, there were gaps in someone's history that you uncovered. What about you uncovered some truths, some nasty truths, and then they asked you, "Hey, Miss Anders, can you hide? Can you direct me how to hide that? Maybe not you, but like, hey, can you give me some pointers on how to hide this? I feel an enormous amount of guilt."
I've had people, because they know I'm not going to do it, but I've had
I
people,
knew it.
they know that's not going to happen.
I knew that.
But I've had people who are like, okay, well, my tree is public on Ancestry or Family Search or WikiTree or wherever they have their public family tree, and putting this on there, my cousins are going to be mad because now it's going to put everybody's business about such and such in the streets. And it's like, okay, I hear you. What I usually tell people to do is I say, you can have more than one mom or you can have more than one dad in a family tree. Keep the line that was how somebody was raised, but put the biology back too. You can pick which one you want to show as the preferred parent, but don't erase the truth. Because otherwise, then in 20, 30 years, 2 generations or whatever, somebody's gonna have to do the work again that I just did.
True.
So, people just say, oh my gosh, I had a group of siblings once who were my client. There's 4 of them. And 3 of them wanted the full truth, and they wanted it in the book that I was making for them. There was going to be in the thing for posterity forever and ever and ever. This is the truth. And then it was like, no, don't do it. We don't need that in the book. Just leave it as it is in the book, or just, we won't talk about that in the book. And I said, you know what, y'all, I'm not making a book till you guys can come to a consensus on what you want it to say. It's not going to be a 3 against 1, 3 wins. That doesn't feel right either, right? You guys need to come to a consensus. But I do try to help clients see the same thing I said earlier, that the shame you're feeling might not even be your shame to have. First of all, if it's not you who did the thing, if it's your parents or your grandparents or whatever, that's not yours. You don't need to hold that like that. But also, let's not pass it forward inadvertently because we're just not being open and honest.
Agreed. That's fair. That's a fair ask. This came to mind. I meant to ask it. Do you ever get a cut of the proceeds if someone reaches out to you for land or financial gain, and they're trying to backtrack and find if that rich uncle they might have had who had might have left them something? Do you get a cut of the proceeds or fortunes found?
No. I
Really?
should start doing that though. No, I'm like, here's your land. I'm so happy for you. I just get all excited. Like, yay, you got your land back. I just get happy for them. I get the money for the work I did, and then, I always say, keep in touch, tell me about everything, invite me to the next family reunion so I can come see this land I hope you find.
Absolutely. That's a true. I might. Yeah, you might get an invoice from me if I did that. No, that's not ethical. Are there lines besides the one I just asked? Are there other ethical lines that you refuse to just cross? There are lines that you will not. Who's your ideal client, and what ethical lines don't you cross?
um, Ethical lines that I don't cross. I think for me, it's when, oh, I have a great example. I forgot all about this. This is a great question. I had somebody who wanted to hire me to find their old girlfriend. And again, I'm not a PI. I know how to,
Right.
I have those skills because I do family history, and sometimes we have to go forward to find descendants. So I have the skills to go and be sort of a PI. But they wanted to hire me basically, right? So we had to go back in time, and they wanted me to be like, okay, here's where we went to high school. Can you like find her parents and see if they're still alive and see if they can find her? And if you can, I said no. That was a quick no. So I think for me, I'm not gonna go sleuth on your people. Like those aren't your people. I'll help you find your people, but I'm not gonna help you find somebody else's people. Why do you need to find her? That's weird. Um,
Jeffrey Dahmer.
it was
Yeah.
weird. Oh, it was weird. I was like, this feels wrong. He's like, I've called her and I've sent her roses. I was like, whoa, I want nothing to do with this. And she's blocked me from all these. No, no. And I should block you too. But I didn't. But they never called again, so I was fine. But
Good.
yeah. So I would say that's what I won't do is help you find people who aren't your family. The other thing I try not to do is contact family for people. I will give you a script. I will give you, depending on the reason, sometimes contact information, only if it's things that are publicly available. Like, here's their Facebook page, friend request them. Um, but like, I'm not going to give you somebody's email address if I sleuth and found it, but it doesn't feel like it's really public information.
Yeah.
So,
To find someone's Facebook is hard though, because people change their names. They're like,
no.
on here, your Mica Anders, email is like whatever, glasses
Mhm.
89. That's really hard. That's really hard. Or your Facebook. That's really
Yeah.
good.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, I have to say people's Facebooks sell a lot more information than I think they do. And if yours doesn't, Aunt Sarah, who liked something, she's got the whole family story open because she doesn't have her stuff on private. So if you know how, Facebook's got a lot. You can do a lot of PI work on Facebook. It's actually kind of scary. Um,
It is.
in terms of who my ideal client is, I would say people who are curious, people who, they've got that like, who are my people?
Yeah.
Who came before me? Or why am I like this? Like, I'm a teacher. Was anybody else a teacher? I'm a philanthropist, but everybody before me was a sharecropper. How did I get like this? Or like, what was the trajectory here that got me to this place? Or, I'm a CEO and I'm really proud of who I come from, but I want to be able to share that story at my next TED talk, but I don't know it. So, I might need help learning it. But really, it's people who are curious. They want to just know who they are, who came before them. Um, and yeah, that's what I would say my ideal client is.
That's huge. That's huge. That is huge. I This has been an incredible conversation. This has been an epic conversation. I love what you do. I love the great work. This is phenomenal. And I'm so glad again that you said yes, because what you do, again, I think now more than ever is crucial, that we need to figure out who we are and find out some of those proclivities that you have. You, the viewer, you, the audience member, some of those proclivities that you have. Why can you sing? Why can you sing naturally really well? Right? Why are you drawn to these things or this scene or this area? Why do you do well in tropical climates versus colder climates? That's your history. And so get on board, get connected, and find out where you actually belong in the world and your family belongs so you can continue to create an incredible impact. Miss Saunders, I want to ask you two questions. The first one is, what do you want your own descendants to know about you? So we fast forward 100 years, 200 years. What would you say to your ancestors coming across your fantastic podcast episode today? What would you like them to know about you?
I would like them to know that I followed the path that led me to happiness. And for me, that means even when things were hard, I knew that I wanted a job that I loved, that I got up every day and was excited to sit down and do my work, that it wasn't an easy path, but it was worth it because I have joy every day.
Ooh, that's good. That's good. How can people connect with you? How can people learn more?
You can find me on the socials. I'm on Facebook, Instagram, Threads, LinkedIn, YouTube at Anders Genealogical Services. It's a lot of letters, but my name is easy. It's just Mica is my first name, last name Anders. I'm on the Googles as well. So find me, connect with me. I'd love to hear your story and help you find out more about your history.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Connect. This lady is fantabulous, wonderful, amazing. All right, y'all. We are out of time. We have to let this incredible woman go. She has many more lives to change, much more research to do, and many more people to help take their lives to the next level. So we gotta let this incredible guest go. But I want to say this to you publicly, Miss Mika. Don't ever quit. We need you. We need what you're doing. You are fantabulous. So
thank you.
Absolutely. You are welcome. All right, y'all. Like we end every show, I hope this message was inspirational. I hope this helps you take your life to the next level. Get connected. Like we end every show, take care of your friends, take care of your family, and always take care of business. This is Marcus, your favorite gentleman, and the incredible Mica Anders signing off. Love you guys.
Bye.